this over to Takis Karantonis. Takis, thank you for your time with us today.
I will try to be brief so that we have time for this discussion, because you know how a local economy recovers is really a collective endeavor, a collective project. So just that you know, my name is Takis Karantonis. You heard that. It's a Greek name because I'm an immigrant. I'm coming originally from Greece. I've been here in Arlington since 2007. I'm a planner and an economist by training and by passion. I've been here in Arlington. I worked as the executive director of CIPRA, the Columbia Pike Revitalization Organization, emphasis on revitalization. And I work with businesses big and small and the community and all stakeholders to jumpstart an entire corridor in Arlington, the second most populous corridor in Arlington that has suffered from stagnation, let's put it this way. I would call it disinvestment for about 30 years before the Columbia Pike Initiative started to induce development again there. I work in microlending today. I work with the Enterprise Development Group, which is part of the Ethiopian Community Development Council. It is a CDFI. And I'm daily confronted with small and smallest businesses, minority businesses, Black businesses, women-owned businesses, and the challenges that they are facing right now under COVID, but also under normal circumstances, which means that they don't have access to capital, they don't have access to resources. It is pretty tough for them to make, to start a business here in Arlington. It is expensive, and it is not always rewarded by success without support. So I do that professionally, and I'm a big believer in supporting small and medium-sized businesses to strengthen the backbone of our economy. I am also probably that I'm a long-time transportation policy person, a housing policy activist, and a strong supporter of public education. I know firsthand that how these areas, how decisions at the level of the county board shape the economy and the society, and how these areas have to fit together so that they work both for our communities, but also for our businesses and for our economy. Right now, I know how COVID has battered our economic fabric, but I know that it hasn't been the same for everybody. There are businesses and business sectors that do quite well, or let's say they will come out of this situation strong enough to be able to survive and to be able to thrive again. Other sectors, especially the service sector, and of course everything related to transportation, the airport authority, etc., will need quite a lot of support to recover. So this is why I'm here today, to discuss about how best we can do that. You probably know that I'm already on record I'm advocating for creating a microloan program for Arlington, a revolving loan that will be on the long term supporting small businesses. I do believe that we have that strengthening the action and the strategy of our Arlington Economic Development Department is a critical thing to do right now, because we want these jobs back, and we want the investment to be supportive of our recovery. But I would rather revert it to you and start the conversation from here.
Takis, thank you so much for that. We're first going to turn to Doug Snowboss to ask the first question. And again, before Doug starts, a reminder, if you've just joined us, we do want to take your questions too. Please chat them to the Carter Room. So go down to the chat function under More, hit chat your questions to the Carter Room. We'll start asking those at 6 o'clock, and we have a 6:15 end time this evening. Doug, take it away.
Meredith, thank you very much. Takis, I'm Doug Snowinboss. I'm a member of the Business Outreach team for Arlington Democrats. The Arlington County budget is about $1.4 billion. With the coronavirus, we're likely to have reduced tax receipts. We're also likely to have increased need for spending in the budget. Could think of several examples. If we have to have more money cleaning the schools, disinfecting, that's going to be a lot of money. What will your priorities be for Arlington County's budget in this new and potentially very difficult financial circumstances?
So first of all, at this point, and the discussion is ongoing. At this point, we don't really know how deep and broad the financial impact of COVID will be this year and next year. It will be, though. And we've seen yesterday already the county manager coming up with proposals, and also with regards to a capital investment program, a short-term planning for that. He even floated the idea or the proposal to have a bond for a bond referendum on to fund infrastructure expenses, about $50+ million. So for me, it's people first. So the social safety net is at this moment of paramount importance. Every resource we have has to be put into that. So food security, employment support, housing support, this is critical. Rent assistance and eviction protection. These things are, for me, absolute priority right now. The second priority is actually economic development. And that means, I mentioned before that I would like to have a microloan program to support small and medium-sized businesses until they get back on their feet and we can keep them. What we cannot afford is to lose them. And the third thing, which I still believe is of critical importance, it would be difficult to fund, is rescuing Metro and our arts bus system. Right now, the ridership is very low. Both systems are suffering a lot, and they will be the slowest to recover. So for me, this is a first-degree priority, and I will try to find money wherever is available. If we have to defer certain capital expenditures for Metro, for example, if I saw anywhere any dollars going into, let's say, highway or expenses, I would sequester them to fund the operational part of Metro right now. Because I know that if we don't do that, we will lose infrastructure, and that's not good. That I cannot accept.
Thank you very much. Now I think Arbora Johnson has a question.
Yep. Hi, Takis. I'm Arbora, and in addition to working with the business outreach team, I also am a Dominion Hills precinct captain. And my question, and maybe a softball question, because you know your work with CPRA, I'm sure you heard these complaints, but before COVID, small businesses had some frustration with the fact that it was very hard to get what should be simple things like permits to have seating outdoors. Signage is a big sort of sore point with small businesses. And I know there's been appreciation for the flexibility the county board has shown during COVID, especially with the temporary outdoor seating and some flexibility on parking for takeout. How do we make sure that flexibility stays intact and is targeted correctly to help our small businesses? Because, you know, the Arlington way is fabulous, but sometimes it's hard to navigate.
So I have to say the reason why we didn't have flexibility before is because of two things. First of all, government was a little bit viscose in the way they dealt with these things. Small business requests are very diverse as small business themselves. So government has only so much bandwidth, and so sometimes they default to a certain type of treatment or processing. The second thing is that businesses didn't have good representation. In the sense that we have the business improvement districts, we have the urban partnerships on Columbia Pike, Clarendon, and the Lehigh Way, and these partnerships weren't, empowered enough to have enough bandwidth to be able to anticipate, educate their businesses, make them street smart, to prepare them for what they would find with the process, and also work on the side of the Arlington Way, so the general community. For example, a lot of businesses had problems with the signage ordinance, right? So the signage ordinance was not only driven by business insight and by planning, but also had a lot of community input that sometimes was limiting. And there was always a reluctance to try out things to see how they work, and to approve or let be the things that would work, and not go forward with the things that wouldn't work. So all this has changed right now. There is a sudden realization that we are at risk to lose our small businesses and wake up one day in a sea of franchisees or something like that. So that's a good moment to educate the community that protecting your small businesses, supporting your small business is actually a civic duty and has to happen, and they have to support their government, be flexible and accept things. And on the other side, government will learn that allowing for more outside seating, providing access to the public right of way for business purposes, where people can safely meet under social distancing, etc. It's actually good urban design and good urban policy, and learn from that. I've worked on this. I've tried to do even use what's called ephemeral urbanism, with orange cones, and it worked every single time we did that. People appreciate that, and we should continue to do that. Condition for that is that the major players that are the business improvement districts and the partnerships are empowered and funded properly. CPRO, my old employer, is funded properly, but the Clarendon Alliance needs a lot of support, and the Lehigh Way Alliance needs a lot of support as well. I had to testify every year for their budget to be a little bit more meaningful than it is today.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add to that, there are also some pockets of businesses that are not covered even by an alliance or a...
Yes, and I think that we should take care of that and look at the at the clusters, at critical clusters, and make sure that we have in place people who monitor that, like in Westover, for example.
Yes, yeah. All right, thank you so much. And I think back to Doug.
Yes, back to Doug, but one more interlude. I've got one question from the audience to pose to Takis starting at 6 o'clock. That's just about 10 minutes from now. So please keep those questions coming. Please chat them to the Carter Room. Thanks very much. Doug?
Thank you, Meredith. Takis, so on the subject of small businesses and the county helping small businesses, yesterday, as many of us know, the county announced that it was going to be making awards, cash awards of up to $10,000 to 394 separate businesses. It's a total of $2.8 million, of which $1.6 million recently came from the federal government as part of the CARES Act. And so I know you weren't part of the decision-making by the current county board about how this program was going to be run, about who would be eligible, about where the money came from and all that. But I really would like you to be critical and to comment on this and see if there's, if you have any objections or if it could have been done better, or what your thoughts are on this whole situation.
Yeah, it could have been done better in the sense that it could have been done earlier. So I'm working with grants and microloan programs from Baltimore all the way down to Prince William County. So the entire I-95 corridor. So other states have installed these programs earlier. Other jurisdictions have had these programs earlier. Those of you who work in Washington, D.C. have seen that in the first 2 or 3 weeks. These were emergency grant programs. And I think that in Arlington, we would have fared better if we had that earlier in place, especially the first 600,000 and change money that was already available in a pot with Arlington Economic Development for startup support. Startups are not happening right now, so this money was sequestered for that. And that was also the reason at the beginning that this was conceived as a grant program, because it was so little money. There was not enough money. But soon after Arlington County actually started doing that, they found more money. So the 600,000 were up to 1 point something million, 1.2 million. And then the CARES Act money came in as well. So that was now a substantial war chest, so to say. I'm still happy that they did that. I think that they did a good job. The best job is that they reached out, and the Biz Launch program actually delivered on this. They reached out to a lot of businesses. We have 6,500 businesses that would qualify, or a little bit more than 6,500 businesses in Ireland that would qualify small businesses according to the Small Business Administration definition. We got over 1,300 applications in, and I'm happy to see that they decided to give substantial money, not just to disseminate, small amounts to everybody, but they gave. I checked with clients who I encouraged and I coached to apply for this, and I saw money that makes sense. So for a small, restaurant, getting $7,000, somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000, it's right now paying for personnel for a month. So that's or a little bit more than that. So that's good. I have a personal problem with grants programs, because I believe that this is just saving the day, but not creating resiliency further down the road. I know that small businesses are so diverse that they're very resilient. They can pivot very fast. They can adapt, and they can, there is return on investment. If we loan them, soft loan them, the money, this will come back. This will be absolutely no problem for them in 2, 3, 4 years to have all this capital back. Now it's gone, and it has helped right now. In addition to the the Paycheck Protection Program and the emergency, the IDL, the SBA programs. But I would rather have a serious microloan program that can be also managed in collaboration with CDFIs that exist in Arlington, the Latino Economic Development Center, for example, or the organization I work with, and even some banks, local banks would be very helpful. Even the credit union credit unions could help us with this.
Okay, thank you, Takis, very much. Maybe we can talk some more about this outside, because it's a very interesting subject to me. Arbor Johnson has another question.
I do, and I'll do a plug for Meredith for folks to submit your questions to the Carter Room. But my second question is a continuation of the conversation that we've already been having, which is, can you talk more about your vision for how bids and alliances and similar groups in places like Westover that are not yet existing. What roles should those types of organizations play, and what would that necessitate coming from the county board leadership?
I see that, first of all, I would like, and that's the first time I discussed that in public, I would like to have for each business improvement district and for each urban alliance, a 3-year program for each one, so that we have a good idea of what the goals are, where we are, what the resources are used. Right now, the 3 alliances, and they supervise big parts of our small business footprint, that is Lee Highway, Columbia Pike, and Clarendon, officially, right? So I think that they are so, the financial support that we give them is very meager. It's really low, and they cannot have enough, other than, their executive directors and maybe 1 or 2 more staff members, they cannot have. And so their ability to monitor the business environment, to market their places, to do placemaking with some expectations. They can do events, but it's always a struggle for them, and extremely risky every time. If it rains on Clarendon Day, Clarendon Alliance loses so much money that it won't recover. So that's not a viable way to do that. I do believe that, first of all, I would like the big business improvement districts to participate in cross-subsidizing, sparing a little bit of money of what they have, because they are in the millions, for a pot that would support their smaller sisters and brothers in Arlington, and takes responsibility for the economy of Arlington County as a whole. I think this is fair to ask them, especially if we see right now, Richmond Highway, the Crystal City bid is a huge operation right now. The Roslyn bid is a huge operation. Boston is a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit more challenged under COVID right now, but nevertheless, in perspective, I would like them to contribute to a urban, a placemaking and business support pot that would support placemaking, that could support on the street, actions that help small businesses. Small businesses need this kind of follow-up every single time. If they want to open, for example, to have an outside seating area, if somebody sits with them, and I've done it many times, and explains to them what they need to do, instead of getting to that in 6 months, they will get to that in 2 months. It will be cheaper for them. They will know what they have to expect. They will know, they will benefit from the experience of others. They will be connected. They will, if anything happens, there will be somebody to listen to them immediately who knows exactly the place. That's the good stuff that has to happen. And this is why urban alliances are so valuable. This is why I would like to have a 3-year plan, how the placemaking works, how, for example, they do the banner programs, how they coordinate their events, public events, how they coordinate fairs, how they coordinate all these actions that make a place a place. And businesses are part of that, small businesses specifically.
Yeah, thank you so much. If I may jump in here, listening to you talk, Takis, as well. Pre-COVID, our business outreach team was spending a lot of time talking with area businesses about the Amazon investment. And I think what struck us was that all this investment was going in the Crystal City area. And yet it felt like the other community associations and the other bids who felt like people are going to be moving to Arlington, potentially to take some of these jobs, and they'll be utilizing, Amazonians will be utilizing all parts of our community, but it felt like they were not as included in some of those community planning discussions as much as they would like. And so what I'm hearing from you is that you would take more of a holistic approach and ensuring that our bids and our community associations are supporting one another more so, talking to one another more so now, so that they have their own unique identity and ability to develop the way that they feel their neighborhoods would be best served. But they're also doing so in a way that they're being mindful of the broader commercial and community fabric of our community as well. Is that a fair?
This is fair, and this has also, these are specific actions that and has also financial commitment that has to come with that, and a long-term planning commitment. So, and also an understanding of how these work together. This is why I would like to have a 3-year economic development plan for the local businesses, for the business improvement districts and the alliances, so that we have goals on which we can be accountable and report. Are we doing progress? And if not, what's not working? What do we have to fix, etc. There are a lot of right now we have a kind of a firefighter approach. So 23rd Street is declining for some reason. Let's rush to resuscitate that. Columbia Pike loses small businesses because Ballston has evolved so vigorously, and National Landing now has evolved so vigorously. We are following. We are not proactive.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. It's 6 o'clock, so that means I am turning to your questions. So once again, if you've got a question, please chat them to the Carter Room. And we will deliver them to Takis. So we do have a first question here. So this comes from Carlos, and he'd like to know how you would support universal design as a standard for all new developments to prepare for the significant increase in the older adult population in Arlington over the next 15 years. And also in particular, how familiar are you with the age-friendly plan for Arlington County?
So I'm very familiar with universal design, and I will tell you that I will tell you that further down. The first thing for me is I am a big supporter of walkability. For me, complete neighborhoods are walkable neighborhoods. Are neighborhoods where you step out of the door and your basic needs, your basic necessities, your grocery, your rec center, your transportation, your health, your park are within walking distance. And when I say within walking distance, this is somewhere between maximum 15 to 20 minutes. That means that the neighborhood has to be, first of all, designed for all ages, designed for this, and thought and planned for this. Universal design, I'm familiar because one of the things that we did to fund actually CPRO when the government wouldn't fund us was to start the Arlington Home Show. For many years, I actually did that, almost for 10 editions, annual editions. And we were promoting universal design. And I think that we should ask all developers right now of all stripes, when they come to us for permits, we should ask them for that. We cannot impose that to them, but we can ask them to allow us to allow for universal design, for intergenerational design, for making it easier for seniors to, for example, to get into more appropriate housing for when they downsize, etc. So that is for me very important. I never forget that even from the point of view of policy, our senior citizens are among our best neighbors. They stay, they shop, they walk, they use the facilities, they use the parks, the recreation, they use public transportation. So this is a critical constituency that has been always underappreciated, and I believe that we have a strategic interest to build on making Arlington more aging friendly. When I came to Arlington, one thing that a board member told me about the places. Arlington is a place that welcomes a stranger. And also, you know something, she said, that was Barbara Favola, it is good to age in Arlington. So yeah.
Thank you so much. We have
I should, just a footnote. There is one thing that Arlington does very good, and this is daycare for seniors who have degenerative neurological problems. I think that the capacity for that should be increased. It liberates many working families from having to care during the day and not being able, to go after their jobs. This is economically and socially and ethically a critical thing.
Thank you very much. We have a second question in from Janine. She'd like to know more about your thinking and your plan for affordable housing in Arlington. As you know, this has been a focus for our outreach efforts as well. We're not making much progress. In fact, we're backsliding on what we need to be doing to creating more of an affordable housing supply for those families who are in need of such. So I would love to hear your thoughts on affordable housing in Arlington.
Yes, and as somebody who has been an advocate for affordable housing in Arlington since I've been here, and I'm the vice chair of the Alliance for Housing Solutions the last 2 years. I was always complaining that businesses haven't been sufficiently involved in the advocacy for Arlington for affordable housing. Because it's their, I would always assume, their workforce, they cannot find appropriate workforce in Arlington close by. And I have a litany of cases that I know personally where especially small businesses couldn't retain their personnel because the commute was too long, and the rotation was horrible. So people couldn't get to a point where they would be skilled and make a little bit more money and stay with the company, etc. So that was a constant problem. This is why affordable housing is critical. The reason for the shortage is very clear to you who are business people or related to business. It's very clear. At full employment, 2.4% unemployment rate, every dollar that you invest to create anything in Arlington needs to import their workforce. And we don't have housing for this workforce, period. End of story. And we have to find ways to stimulate that. So I've been talking in the campaign trail about corridor development, about using the Affordable Housing Investment Fund to stimulate new production, new supply, where it's easier to do because we have housing supported by transportation services, etc. It's efficient to do that there. We have been talking in the entire community about the future, new tools like the missing middle housing, which is a way that we would stimulate the market to produce more units on the land where appropriate, again supported by the assets I mentioned. I'm supportive of all this, but for me it's very critical that businesses step up, small businesses begin to participate as partners, and you have enormous influence, because when you say that these are my employees, this is my bottom line, this is the taxes that I pay in Arlington. These are at stake if we don't solve our housing problem, housing shortage problem. Your voice is really important in this. This is why I'm inviting you to do that, and I will be an ally on this.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question from the audience as well. With some of these community development plans, for example, the Lee Highway Plan, while it does need work, there is a concern that small businesses will be pushed out by high rents. How should we think about that?
Yes. Right now, we see we will see how rents evolve. For example, I've been looking lately in the Richmond Highway corridor, and rents were up 20 to 25%. That's an Amazon effect directly, even under COVID. Uh, in other places, I think that's still a speculative pressure on rents in general. You've heard about the Pupatella thing, that they got their rent up by 40%. We will see if this can be sustainable in the market. The job of the Arlington County Board is actually to monitor that very closely, and this is why we need also alliances and business improvement districts to be active on this. Talk and work with the landlords, the new developers, and see how can we support our businesses to be able to survive there, to mitigate and to try to negotiate a better per square foot rent. It is really difficult. On Columbia Pike, I've experienced how, for example, any old stock, so old commercial space before 2003, let's say, wouldn't have any vacancy at all, but anything newer would have vacancy rates between 15 and 30%. One essential part of economic development is to empower businesses and to lift them out of the subsistence level. So to make them, to induce capacity so that they can make the money to afford a competitive rent and not being replaced by a different business. This is and to have a healthy rotation. This is still a market. So in Arlington, I don't think that we have. Yeah, it is a problem that, especially in new builds, in new construction, we have very high rents. There's also the economics of new construction that are pushing us towards that. We have to work with our businesses or business associations and others to to find the appropriate tools to improve the overall profitability of these businesses. For me, the higher end, when somebody complains about a higher end, that means that the business is not doing very well, that the profits are not enough. If your number one complaint is that the rent is too damn high, then my reading of that is that your market is not working properly. That means that we don't have enough wallets on the street. We don't have enough promotion of the place. The commercial cluster has not the type of demand as we would like to. So I would focus first there to restore your revenue part of the equation before we go into the cost part of the equation.
Now that makes great sense. We're going to wrap up first with our thanks to you, Takis, for spending time with us and fielding our questions. Our thanks to the audience for joining us. We've got one last question that I'm going to turn to my colleague, Doug, to ask. And then we understand, Takis, that you've got a hard stop in about 2 minutes. So we'll be judicious, but thank you again for your time. Doug?
Thank you very much, Meredith. So Takis, speaking about rents, but being a little more practical and a little more immediate. So with the COVID, renters haven't had the money to pay rent, both residential and commercial. That means landlords haven't gotten their rent money. That means there's going to be a lot of conflict there, maybe in the courts once the moratorium is lifted. Is there a role for the county and the county board there, or is that just something the county and the county board just want to stay out of?
For the residential renters, definitely there is a role for the county board, and I believe that we have to appropriate some money. We've done it already. We have appropriated money the county board has appropriated money for this, and that's correct. And we need to monitor the situation very carefully, talk with our landlords. Any landlord who receives money from the county or has, any type of facilities from the county should really pay attention to that. And with other, completely independent landlords, we should be talking. We should bolster and support our rent assistance programs, everything. And I've said that the collaboration with nonprofits that have now proven that they have the capacity to deploy very fast and find the renters in distress and support them financially, etc. This is very important. We have also to work with the state in terms of eviction prevention. For the commercial renters, I think that we have a role on this as well. We need to talk with landlords. We need to, would be part of the job of a board member to intervene personally, to pick up the phone and ask. And after all, if the business fails and goes away, this is a loss. That's very difficult to recover after, especially in a downturn. So I think that we have to have an ongoing, continuous conversation with landlords to not let the small businesses tank or being evicted. And this is where a microloan program would kick in to help them specifically for that and give them a soft loan that would stretch the payments, that would help the landlord, that would help the tenant, and get us back the money for the taxpayer after maybe 5 or 6 years. This is normally the timeline for this soft loan, though. I mean, with big deferrals and things like that.
Takis, Karantonis, thank you very much for your time with us. We'll all be looking to the July special election where you are running as the Democratic candidate for Arlington County Board. Takis, thank you. Thank you also to all of our audience members. We've recorded this session. We will be sharing it on social media. So you can share this discussion and Takis's views on Arlington, our economy, our communities, our businesses moving forward. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.